everybody. So are you a journal person? Are you a write things down with paper and pen in a notebook? I am. I remember that saying, if you think it and ink it, you'll remember it and act on it. Sometimes we get so caught up in this digital, world of digital appointments and, digital reminders and digital notes and emails. And, it's helpful. And, yes, sometimes you can put sound alarms on your phone to remind you, oh, you have to leave now to get ready to go on your appointment, Like those things are definitely helpful that the digital world provides. And yet, there's something about physically taking your hand and a pen and putting pen to paper and ink on a journal page and writing, in your own handwriting. There's something that imprints the brain that allows you to remember and have that brain and body connection that you don't get when you're just typing or when you're, clicking on your phone. It's different. So I encourage you, as a homework assignment, to get a journal, get a notebook, and just for a week, just write some things down. Maybe it turns into a to-do list. Maybe it turns into, feelings and emotional noting of like, are you in a good mood? Is your attitude up or is it down? Or, what life goals do you want to focus on? What financial, investments you want to put into practice, whatever the goals are. Like, my encouragement to you this time is to physically write them down with pen and paper in a journal and see what happens. So I'm going to share, sometimes how we're kind of programmed in our current world right now, that if you're not doing digital, then you're not participating. Okay. And I just want to counteract that right now. So, as a life coach, as I want to give of myself to my clients and be fully present with them, I am also doing my internal work. I am learning and growing in different areas of my life, and I'm challenging myself with health and wellness and fitness and financial planning and investing and that was a squirrel and goal setting and keeping my word and integrity and etc. So there's all these things that I'm working on within my life, and I keep leveling up and improving, right? And of course, I attend other life coaching programs, and I have other life coaches that coach me to help me to grow from where I am now to the next level, right? And then when I look back and when I look at my journals, when I look at the paper, the ink on paper of what my past goals were, my past to-do lists were, and then I can go cross all those things off and check them off or line them out. Like, I accomplished this, I did this, it's done. And there is something to be said about that physicalness of having your hand with a pen, gliding it across the paper. And again, I prefer black ink, but I really prefer blue ink. And I see the ink in my handwriting, and then, I take a red marker or a red pen and I cross it out. There is such satisfaction with that. I don't know why. It's, I'm just an office girl. I like paper products and doing things by hand. So I don't get the same satisfaction when I'm on my note app in the iPhone and I click off a to-do. It just doesn't do the same thing for me. I don't know why, but I have observed that. So coming back to this, life coaching program. So I'm in a program and I'm being coached, and one of there's various things that I can click on, and learn about. And so I'm in one of these modules, and everything that's within the system is digital. So, they'll have you watch this video, and then it'll show that you've watched the video, and then like a little check mark will come up like you completed watching the video, okay? And then there'll be questions that are at the end, and there's like a digital space for you to fill out your answers to the questions within this digital portal, for you to write down, by typing it in the system, in the portal, your answers to those digital questions. Well, for me, I don't like to do that. Number one, I don't know if my answers are public. Do I read every single line in that acceptance statement with all the legalese? Not really. Who does, right? So I really don't want my digital answers in that portal. So I was not answering the digital questions. What I was doing is I was going to that page, I was printing it out, or I was just sitting with my laptop open and looking at the questions, and then I was answering the questions in a notebook with pen and paper. And I wrote the question out, and I answered the question, and I wrote it in my own handwriting. And like I said, there is a brain and a body connection when you are physically writing things, but there isn't when you're doing digital things. So I'm actually participating. I'm actually in this group and I'm participating. I'm just not doing it the way that the instructor hoped that I would do it. But I am participating. But I'm doing it with pen and paper, not digitally. So eventually I started to get these emails that said, "Anne, we noticed that you're not filling out the forms." Yeah, I'm not doing it your way, but I'm doing it my way, and I'm happy. Because you know what? My goals, my things that I'm working on is my private information. And I'm going to handle it privately. I don't need to do it publicly. I don't need to give a play-by-play within a public group of every single thing I did. I can put in one photograph saying, "Hey, I completed module 1, you know what I mean? But I don't need to show all of my answers in a public group all the time. I get to choose what I'm going to share publicly and what I'm going to keep private, okay? So what I'm saying is that whether or not you've thought about these things, I'm saying I have. So my encouragement to you is to pay attention to what you are putting in digitally. So now I'm going to share something else that I've experienced in a digital portal to give you a heads up. This was a previous digital portal with, I'm going to call it, personal development life coaching, and it was with Tony Robbins. And it was a very, intense program. I made a large investment to do this program, and you're intensely doing all this homework. There's a lot of rah-rah. There's a lot of enthusiasm, okay? And I played full out in this program. And then, there was this invitation that you would get this free portal for 30 days. And they were encouraging you to type in your business idea and to write your first course and your first class, and that it's this digital portal. And so I was a little skeptical about that, because I'm thinking, these are my proprietary, content and my ideas. I don't really want them in a portal that other people who design the portal or the powers that be that set up the portal or the owner of the program has access to see what I'm writing, because it's really my private information. But in their mind, it's like, if you're putting together a content for a course, you want to, set up module 1 and step 1, 2, 3 and whatever. So the point is, it was a digital system. It was a digital portal. It was free for 30 days for you to try it out. So I started filling out this portal. And what I noticed was that all of a sudden, I started to get emails and targeted text messages that were related to my content that I was putting into that portal. I have no idea how these bots or, you know what I'm saying, tracer things, or you get what I'm saying? I don't know how the back end stuff works with this stuff, but I'm saying, I started to be like, wait a minute, how would anybody know about that from these other platforms if that's my content that I was putting into this, quote, private portal, that nobody should have access to? And then what I noticed was, during this course that Tony Robbins was leading, that the same things that I was writing in my course, he was then talking about the next day, as kind of his idea. I was looking at some of the new trends and the new research, and I'm thinking, that was my research. Okay? How would he know that information unless he read what I was writing in my content? And that was supposed to be for my eyes only. So here's the deal. What am I saying? If you do not read every single line in a legalese agreement, contract, that you're using somebody else's system, platform, portal, and you're giving away your rights without even knowing that all these other people have access to read and view and copy and paste your content and then pass it off as their own. All I'm saying is, that's not what I wanted to be involved with. So I deleted out my content, and meaning copied and pasted into my, Word document, right? And I deleted it off of the platform, and I canceled my portal with Tony Robbins. And so what I'm getting at is, you could say, well, you didn't give it a chance. No, what I'm saying is, I saw enough that I needed to see to say that that wasn't for me. Now, when I create content, and it's something that I did with my research, it's something that I have experienced in my personal experience. I have blood, sweat, and tears backing up what I'm talking about. Whether I create that as a physical book or an ebook or a printout from my laser printer that isn't even you can't even get it, you know what I mean? You have to go through me to get it. What I'm saying is, that protects that content is what the people that paid me are receiving in that face-to-face workshop, or in that Zoom call that I then send them the downloadable PDF that they've paid for, right? The point is, at least I know that I'm getting paid for my work. It doesn't mean that somebody's not going to abuse the system, because people do, okay? But it shortchanges it that you're minimizing, meaning you're covering your trails. You're trying to get paid for what is legally your ideas and your work and your intellectual property. And in today's age, I don't think people really understand how much of their intellectual property they're giving away and giving access to. Now, on the note of, AV and AI, even just being on YouTube, and when it comes time to upload a video, it'll say, do you want to make your AV content available? And if the option is no, I always click no. But sometimes if it's a shorter video, it doesn't allow you that. It just says, would you like to make your audio and visual available, or just the audio? So in that case, I'm saying just the audio, because it doesn't give me a choice to say no at all. So the point is, are you paying attention to these intellectual property restrictions? And, are you really paying attention to what is really yours? Or are you giving away things for free, not even realizing that you are? Because there's a bug, a fly that landed on my glasses. Because the powers that be that have organized that portal or that structure or system have in their legal clauses that they can read your content. They can copy and paste it. And then they can mass market it with their huge marketing departments and take your ideas that were your ideas and then mass market them. So all I'm saying is beware, think before you act, and pay attention that when you start doing things and become involved in certain portals and you start noticing all these targeted advertising directed at you on your private content, you might want to reconsider, your association or agreement or non-agreement to those portals and those organizations. So, and remember, you have the right to answer questions and participate in a way that makes sense to you. Just because somebody says, hey, I've created this digital portal for you, and you should be happy with my digital portal, doesn't mean you need to fill out any of those forms. You can always print the paper by hand, and you can always just copy the question and answer it in a paper journal. And that way it keeps your information private. It doesn't make it public. So you can always be selective with, here's a photo of my completed decluttering of this room, that you participate in the group and you show a proof that you did a certain thing. Or you can have a one-line statement that says, hey, I reorganized all the shelves where my bookshelves were, and I curated the books and simplified to a more minimalistic look. And you can type that in a comment. You don't even need to add a picture. You're still participating, even if you're not putting all these pictures and all of these excessive details. Like, you can keep it simple, sweetheart, right? So that's my encouragement for you, that selectively choose what you want digital, and sometimes the safest bet is to pick up a pen and paper and write it down. Have a good one. Bye.